Hello everyone and welcome along to the home of British motorsport, the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit and round number 3 of the 2023 Intelligent Money British GT Championship. It's the Silverstone 500, for many the biggest race of the year. 3 hours of action around a circuit that was made for GT competition, and we've got the biggest grid that this championship has seen for 11 years. What better way to celebrate what's already been a very special weekend here in the United Kingdom? Coronation weekend, we've got the marching band, we've got the Union flags, and we've got hopefully a great afternoon of racing entertainment coming your way. The band of the 24th Invicta Rifles here to put on a show, and I think that's really going to be the theme of the day. What a show we've got for you after a fascinating day yesterday. Qualifying rained out. The weather today far more pleasant than it was yesterday afternoon, that is for sure. We weren't actually able to get any lap time set in qualifying, so it's given us a very, very jumbled grid, and that should lead us into a particularly fascinating race around what is a real driver's favourite circuit. It's fast, it's flowing, it's wide open, it always generates good racing. And our resident expert, Joe Osborne, was here the other day to take a walk around the Silverstone circuit and point out a few of the things we need to look out for over the next few hours.
Here we are at Silverstone. We're stood just before the very complex section of Maggots and Beckett's into Chapel. The Formula One drivers talk about this as being the best bit of circuit anywhere in the world, and I don't disagree. I even think in a GT car it's even harder. With the less downforce than the F1 car, the drivers are working even harder to keep their cars stuck on the black stuff. As the sign shows, you've got a lot of corners coming up in a very short sequence. So you can see the curb here below my feet. The black and the white bit relatively smooth, although the serration does drop away, good inch and a half there, and then you have the red sausage. If you're confident of your car and it's got good front end, especially, and the rear isn't too leery, you can place the left-hand wheels on here, and that really opens up the right-hand part. Now at the right-hand apex, we're looking back at our approach. We know where we want to be all the way over to the right as we're looking at it, near, if not on top of that red sausage curb, opening up the angle to where I'm stood now. So interestingly, the curb, we've got the standard FIA serration, and then we've actually got a flat bit of tarmac here that the drivers will get their right-hand wheels on. They have got an extra chance to cut the corner even more potentially here by using this large red sausage curb here. You look at the size of it. This is what puts outside school playgrounds to slow you down at 20 miles an hour. So you hitting this in a race car doing 130 miles an hour, you're going to feel it. But what it lets you do is cut the corner even more. You can see the grass is being worn away there by cars using that. The real hard bit here is the more you hit it, the more likely you are to damage wheels, suspension, splitters, any sort of bodywork is really prone to damage. But you get the benefit of a lap time. So it really is, am I going to nibble or am I going to smash this part of the curb? Because for lap time, I'm all over here smashing as hard as I can. So here we are, stood in between Vale Corner behind me and Club Corner coming up. Vale Corner, a very tight left-hander, taken in second gear. But before it, you're all the way up in fifth. So it's a big brake zone, which naturally leads to a really good overtaking opportunity. Here we are at Club, reprofiled in 2009. Now a super critical point where you pick the throttle up. The drivers in a well-handling car will be picking it up in the next couple of meters where I'm stood, and now they will be flat all the way through the second part of Club, all the way down the new pit straight. And the next corner is Abbey, which is at the end of that massive wing building complex. So 1 kilometre an hour faster here, carried all the way down the straight, suddenly turns into 2 or 3 tenths gained, and that is so important for a fast lap round here at Silverstone GP. So Silverstone we know is fast and flowing, but with yin there must be yang, and this is the slowest point of the circuit. In a GT3 car, the apex speed is all the way down at 40 miles an hour. It feels like walking pace, but more importantly, it is a slight overtaking opportunity, probably the cheekiest / most opportunistic one of the lap. A short brake zone means it's really got to be a lunge, where we see a lot of contact here, but it's worth the risk if you're getting held up by a slower car in front of you. Here I am stood in front of the BRDC clubhouse. The British Racing Drivers Club owns Silverstone. I'm fortunate enough to be a member, and many of the drivers on the grid today are also members. The clubhouse overlooks Brooklands Corner, one of my favourite corners. You can see the tightening radius as you come down the Wellington Straight, and I'm still not at the tightest point. The apex is still 15 metres ahead of me. The drivers are having to stay on the brakes to keep the front of the car happy and get rid of any of that understeer. We then have another difficult question. How much are we going to cut? The legal amount, the black and white, is a nice smooth tarmac that doesn't unsettle the car at all. But those big red sausage curbs protecting the grass from the drivers cutting too much allow an even shorter distance. So that is where the optimal lap time is. It then is a very short run into the last corner of Luffield.
It's a very sunny day. We've been listening to Queen by a marching band, which is quite nice, wasn't it, Sam? You're here on the front of the grid due to your FP2 times yesterday. Now, we weren't quite sure what was going on when we spoke yesterday, so you must be pleased to see yourself at the sharp end.
Yeah, definitely. We went back into the truck straight after our interview and sort of worked it out ourselves. Yeah, and definitely really happy. I don't think, even if quali happened, I think you can't get better than P1, so we are very happy, yeah.
Yeah, you had a bit of a problem, didn't you, in Alton Park? Didn't quite go to plan, so winning the Silverstone 500 must be up there as your all-time favourite thing to do right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the Monaco race for the F1. If you win the Silverstone 500, it's a great race to win. So it's definitely our aim today is to get that 37.5 points to put us back in the championship fight. So that is the plan this race.
Always the plan to win, Sam. The best of luck. Andy, back up to you. Thank you, mate.
Place your bets then, everyone. The Silverstone 500 for 2023 is just a few minutes away. We've already had two fantastic races over Easter weekend at Alton Park, where we had a little bit of everything weather-wise there. Two different winners across both the GT3 and GT4 classes means that we have a tie at the top of both of their championship tables. It's early days, but it's never too early to start thinking about championship points. But a fair few of those championship frontrunners have work to do from slightly lower grid positions than they would like. So cars make their way around on the warm-up lap. Let's take a look at how they're going to line up for this one then. It's Team ABBA Racing, the AM drivers, remember, starting within GT3. So Richard Neary will take the start from pole alongside Ram Racing's John Ferguson. Row 2 then for the reigning champ Ian Loggy and James Cottingham, who was out on the first lap here a year ago, hoping for better today. Andrew Howard had a crash in qualifying yesterday. The repaired Aston Martin starts 5th alongside Sean Balfe in the Barwell Motorsport Lambo. Then Brendan Areve and Nick Jones in that new Porsche starting from 8th on the grid. Top 10 completed by Garage 59's Alexander West and Mark Radcliffe for Optimum Motorsport. The Garage 59 car always seems to go well here at Silverstone. Mike Price and Mark Sansom are together on the 6th row, Mercedes ahead of Lamborghini. Then Morgan Tilbrook, definitely one to watch, one of the fastest AMs on the grid, languishing down in 13th on the grid alongside Mark Smith in his Paddock Motorsport McLaren. Then it's another two McLarens, Lucky Kira alongside Kevin Say with our onboard camera in the Sky Tempesta racing car, and the 9th row will be shared by Simon Orange and Darren Leung, another car that should make progress in the early stages. Top 20 of this 24-car GT3 grid, shared by Alex Martin and Chris Hart in the Drive Tac Mercedes. Then it's Gilbert and Andre Borodin on the 11th row. The back row then of the GT3 grid will see Ian Campbell's Racelab McLaren start alongside the race-by-race entry of Claude Beauvais for Blackthorn. Then we move into GT4, and as we saw it, the Team Parker Racing Porsche on the class pole position. Zach Meakin will have alongside him Charles Clark in the Optimum McLaren. Then Josh Miller in the R-Racing Aston Martin has the DTO car of Aston Miller for company. Will Moore in the first of the two Academy Motorsport Ford Mustangs alongside ex-British touring car racer Michael Crease in the Ginetta. Carl Cavers in the BMW, and Stuart Middleton will be together on the next row. Then it's Esme Hawke, lots of Ginettas in the middle of the GT4 grid. Ian Goff for company, most recent winner in GT4 at Alton Park. Eric Evans in the second of the Mustang has Ian Duggan for company on the next row, ahead of Ed McDermott in the One Motorsport Mercedes and David Holloway for Century Motorsport in an Aston Martin. Getting towards the back of the grid now, Team Brit, Aaron Morgan should make progress there. We're getting into some of the Pro-Am entries now who have slightly shorter pit stops than the Silvers. We'll cover that later. Morgan's got Kavi Jundu for company ahead of James Kay, another ex-BTCC man. The second of the Century BMWs is going to be started by Michael Johnston, and at the back of the field it will be Harry George for Enduro Motorsport. Well, the cars making their way around towards the start of what is going to be a fantastic 3 hours of Racing. 4 onboard cameras to bring you right into the heart of the action. The number 4 Mercedes will have one of them, so too will Alexander West's Garage 59 McLaren. We've already seen the Sky Tempesta Racing number 93 car. We will have you covered on every angle over the next 3 hours of racing. 3 mandatory pit stops to be made by all of the cars. Driver changes throughout. The threat of rain over the next couple of hours as well. Always the threat of safety cars as well. Over the last 10 years, 5 of the Silverstone 500s have been safety car affected, and that can turn a team's strategy on its head. Here they come then, the green Mercedes of Team ABBA Racing, starting from pole position. That is Richard Neary, John Ferguson alongside for Ram Racing, who will get the jump into Copse Corner at the beginning of this blue ribboned event in the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. Round number 3 of the season gets underway when the red lights go out. That happens now, and the roar builds as they head towards turn 1. Not a good start made by John Ferguson from second. Neary will have the lead. To the outside goes Cottingham, to the inside goes Loggy. They've both jumped the number 15 car, with Cottingham getting up into second in the first corner from 4th on the grid. Single file the Mercedes will run. Andrew Howard jumping into 5th position. Looks like the Century Motorsport BMW still languishing further down the order than they'd like. GT3 are cleanly through the first few corners. What about GT4? The Ginetta's trying to make progress on the outside line. They just about keep it within track limits, and we're side by side already for that GT4 race lead. That looked as though Zach Meakin was under some big pressure from the Optimum McLaren heading down the straight. Richard Neary leads at Stowe Corner. Big dive by Andrew Howard, right back onto his Alton Park form, isn't he? He was making some great overtakes a few weeks ago. He's into the top 4. Joe Osborne, what a start.
That was amazing, so clean. James Cottingham got the jump. I was looking out the window. He timed it perfectly, got all the way past Ferguson before they had to break into turn 1. Backing up there, you got the last one of the paddock GT3 cars there, having to get over that inside curb I was talking about earlier. You can see how big it is when you can see underneath the car. But Ferguson, I thought, looked racy. He was psyching Neary out, but unfortunately, all spinner there for the Mercedes GT4. Everyone avoids well. Just needs to wait there. There'll be a gap, and he can just rejoin. Costing to the inside, and Neary. Costing looks like the man who's got the pace at this moment in time, doesn't it?
He's already lasted longer than he did in the Silverstone 500 a year ago, where he crashed out at Club Corner on the first lap. Richard Neary nearly loops it coming out of the loop, ironically, holds on to the race lead, but you're on board with Cottingham in second place. He's got the momentum, he's got the run. Is he going to be given the inside line down to Brooklands? Of course not. This is Richard Neary we're talking about. Moves to the middle of the road to defend. He is going to be a very difficult man to pass here, and James Cottingham needs to remember that this is a 3-hour race. He's got ample opportunities to get past this Mercedes. And Joe, when you come up against someone like Richard Neary, you know you're not going to be given an easy time.
Yeah, Richard is hard and fair, but he is always hard. So you know that is a constant with him. Yeah, the team would have definitely reminded James after that mega start, right, we've already got 2 places, mate. Let's chill, take a breath. You've got one of the best teammates in Johnny Adams to give this car to, so you don't need to do all the heavy lifting. You chill, you're paying the bills, have a good time. You don't need to be stressed about it. The car's still nose to tail, still moves going everywhere. So we see one of the team Parker Porsches looking down the inside of Andrew Gilbert, running a little bit wide there. The race director will start to get on top of these track limits pretty soon as well, so that's another thing we need to factor in.
As the GT4 leaders go through Copse Corner, the GT3 leaders are going through Abbey, and that is a spin, I'm afraid, for the Team Parker Porsche. The number 66 car started by Nick Jones. This is down at Club. There is bodywork on the road, so presumably another car involved, Joe.
Yeah, I recognise that. Looks like a McLaren bonnet to me.
Oh.
I've done enough of them in my time, so I think we'll see a McLaren losing a bonnet somewhere, and it probably will need to pit in. We saw at Alton Park Marcus Clutton lose a bonnet and had to pit soon after. Although it is just a bonnet, it's so integral to the cooling of the car, getting hot air off the back of the radiator and helping the car keep in its parameters. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that one. But this Aston Martin of our racing looks quick, doesn't it? It looks like it's trying to get past this Porsche. Be interesting to know, not all of the cars necessarily are full of fuel. They don't have that minimum time. So if you were risking there might be a safety car, early on. Why would you put a full stint of fuel in? Your hand would be cooled early, but it might give you a bit of performance earlier on in the race. So there's a lot of subplots going on already.
And that's one of the great fascinations of these 3-hour races. There is your bonnetless McLaren, by the way, and it is the number 13 car that is Lucky Kera, car he shares with Ewan Hankey, and as Joe predicted, into the pit lane it will come. So we'll try and piece together exactly how that car met with the Team Parker Porsche, which goes back past it now, staying out on track, Nick Jones, but unfortunately Lucky Kera's race already derailed.
Yeah, that's a big hit. That isn't a tap. What he's done to the bumper and even the front crash structure that sits there, the radiator looks bent as well. So I think that car, the engineer will give it the signal of doom, which is the old fingers to the neck and slice it, because I think that is done for the day. So unlucky Kera is our first victim. So let's have a look.
Oh.
So he was already spun by Alex West, and then Lucky Kera must be unsighted, I would say. Then goes in the back of Mark Smith, so I called it completely wrong. So we go on board a Sky Tempesta car. Look at Alex West on the inside, just spun the car around. Everyone knows something's gone on, but they can't see it because the size of that BMW, they can't see through it. So yeah, into the garage, the guys will have a quick look over, but you can just see that metal bit behind the bumper. That's the radiator, and obviously if that's bent and it's got a leak, then the car effectively isn't going to cool itself. We've just had a safety car called. That's going to be for that debris, I would suspect. So as they back up, the cars do have a light system to warn the driver of it. The teams will also obviously be on the radios, but I think this could be a short safety car. But who's going to gamble and box early? I expect to see nearly everyone in to get rid of one of these pits. So we might actually see a GT4 car leading out right here who doesn't box. So who hasn't pitted? 2 GT4 cars. All the GT3s I've seen in the top 10 are all boxing. This is going to be a busy pit lane. Everyone's got their own space, but not enough space to get in and out. Some teams only have enough fuel rigs for 1 out of the 2 cars. So let's see what 2Cs do. It is chaos there. 50 kilometers an hour might feel slow, but when you're nose to tail trying to spot a 5-meter piece of tarmac where you need to park parallel to get done. So there you can see one of the fuel rigs on the left, but the right-hand side one is only to change tyres. Your drivers are even struggling to get back to the white line between the cars there. This is going to be interesting. It's going to definitely be a bit of a shuffle. And actually you see the Neri car using a dump churn. So that's how little fuel they've used. They don't want to use their fuel rig, and the same the Sky Tempesta. They can get 20 litres in from that rather than 200 if needed from that big silver urn you can see on top of those boxes in the pit lane.
Now, in theory, all of these pit stops should take the same amount of time because you only serve your compensation time at the 3rd and final pit stop. So in theory, all of the GT3 cars should be in and out in 135 seconds. That's from pit entry line to pit exit line. So there's a bit of calculating to be done. There is the front of a McLaren, a nice little souvenir for the marshals, and I'm sure the team will want that back by the end of the day. Down off the jacks goes the Team ABBA Racing Mercedes, and now they sit and wait for that minimum pit stop time to elapse, which is a safety thing, but actually here, because of the fueling situation that Joe was just alluding to, it means there's no advantage to whether you have to use the fuel churns or the fuel pump itself. With Sam Neary in the car, sat waiting, and as soon as he's given the signal, off he'll go.
Safety car is in this lap. So, yeah, why do safety cars breed safety cars? Everyone's grouped together in a bit of a mix match as well. You've got GT4s. So he was very lucky that he came out of the pits in front of this car. So he's been given the wave round, but he's actually going to not be on the back of them. So Borodin's got this race start under control. What's he going to do? He's holding them up and he's going to go. He's going to drop it. He's got a nice gap now. So he's going to have 5.5 miles of Silverstone GP fully to himself. Remember, the GT3s cannot overtake a GT4 before that white thick line that the cars are just crossing now. It's all quite strung up at the moment, up to the pit wall, nearly down the inside of Adam. Where's that going to go?
Yeah, here we are on board with Johnny Adam. He's been forced out off the edge of the track because Sam Neary, I think, has gone through, but look at the sea of GT4 traffic ahead. This has got disaster written all over it. 3 wide, side by side between the Mercedes, and Adam on the outside line might just hang on. Here comes Barnicoat as well in the McLaren. Then you've got Ross Gunn, then Raffaele Marciello. This is the stuff that dreams are made of. Down onto the hanger straight they go, and again Sam Neary up alongside the yellow Mercedes. This is for the net race lead, and Barnicoat makes it 3 wide on the grass, ducking and diving in amongst the traffic. Somehow it is still Johnny Adam ahead, but this is getting too busy for words, Joe.
This is incredible. I don't know why you get so excited. This is how I drive on the M25. You just got to find that free bit of space, haven't you? But everyone's done really well. I haven't seen a bit of contact yet. Barnicoat is a bit deep there. He's got to get around that other Optimum McLaren. That's the hard bit when you've got a team with two cars. Barnicoat, that's his sister car technically. You don't want to hurt them. Leary running a bit wide. Look at that cluster of cars. Dan Harper, big slide in the BMW. I have to say, everyone is being really respectful. The GT4s, you've got to remember, are on their limit. The GT3's just got that advantage of the extra momentum around these high-speed corners with that downforce. But the GT4s are still hustling on their limit. And it actually looks like Johnny Adams just had a little break, hasn't he? Probably had his first breath for this first 3/4 of the lap. These cars are so fast, so complex, so many things to do. As you see the Greystone car stop there. Is that a problem? Is that going to be a safety car? At the moment, the good news is I actually think the safety car is the same for everyone because there isn't anyone that hasn't done that second pit stop. He gets going, does he? We'll go back to a battle. Let's work about that one later. But yeah, going to these big cut of grass there for Neary. He looks angry, doesn't he? But he can't get away round him. He just take a chill, relax. Let's work out where he's at his worst. You're both in Mercedes, but you're different drivers. Let's pick one go. Let's stop just throwing everything at him, every single corner. Just regroup, and that's where maybe it's probably a bit hard. Sam, his teammate, also being his son, like trying to tell your dad how to drive a car is never the easiest thing. As we see it going, so obviously a front right. It doesn't look like a puncher, does it? Maybe a suspension failure. The bodywork and the tyre are definitely meeting in a fashion that they shouldn't. There's a chance he can get out of the way there on the national bit of the circuit. I don't really mind a safety car, yes or no. I think it's even for everyone. Everyone's got their ram in now. I think what it would do, it would really hurt Aribe and Tilbrook because it would lose that gap they've gained by leaving their pro in longer. It's a huge roll of the dice for everyone here, but yeah, it's hard to call at the moment, isn't it? Interesting onto that Wellington Street. You saw how much rain we had yesterday. It's quite a good self-policing tactic there for track limits. You just wet the curb and cover it in mud, and no one's used it all day. It's a curb we'd normally see the drivers using to get rid of some of that lock. Safety car, I love being wrong. So yeah, I think this really hurts. So Enduro in already. That won't really help or hurt. Who's the biggest winner? I think we're going to see Andrew Howard and Ross Gunn win this race. There you go. My call, an hour and 20 minutes away. Safety car lights are off, so Aribe is going to back them up. What should he do? He should go relatively early to spread them out. There's not that many GT4 cars involved. There is one in front of Cottingham, though, so that would be worth going. But he still looks quite steady away, doesn't he? He can drop it whenever he wants. They're starting to spread out. Yeah, they've gone. So Tilbrook is behind. That's the car we're looking. He has got one of the Parker Porsches in between of Martin, that slightly older one. Technically should be getting blue flags, but there's enough going on for all the marshals where that is going to be pretty hard for them to see. And you see that GT4 holding up Cottingham. He was just getting them past him as they crossed the line, which is the correct thing to do. Painfully slow, but unfortunately it's the only way you can do it.
So back underway then with an hour and 12 minutes to go in the 2023 Silverstone 500, and it's Brendan Aribe who holds officially a 1.3 second advantage over Morgan Tilbrook, who has already got past that lapped Porsche. Third place then for the Aston Martin of Andrew Howard, fourth place the Mercedes of James Cottingham, and fifth the red BMW on your screen there of Darren Leung. Filter their way through Maggotts and Beckett. It will take probably a lap or two for this to filter itself out as Richard Neary and John Ferguson go either side there of the Club Beauvais number 19 Aston Martin, and Neary will come out of that on top. So that's a change for 7th place. Richard Neary always on his toes at a race start or restart, and that is why, because it's a prime opportunity to gain position.
I would have to say that Balfe is struggling, or the Lambo is struggling. It's peeling over. We see a car off to the right there. I didn't quite see what car that was.
Century Aston, I think.
Okay, so we see a stop-go penalty, 131 seconds. That kind of alludes to exactly how much they've gained. So the race director has thrown the book at them and everything else that they go. So what happens to that Century Aston Martin? Cottingham's down the inside. Did you just squeeze him over?
Oh, dear.
I mean, hopefully for everyone involved, the Aston gets going and it's put down as a racing incident. But if that was the same class, that's going to be a penalty, isn't it? Should it be any different for multi-class racing? In my opinion, no. As we see Sam Neary, the first pro to get in for the last stint of the race. That's an added spice of dynamic, isn't it? But going back to that Ginetta, like I said, the penalty should be a stop and go. The race director is a dictator, not a director, so he can really use the rules to whatever he feels is fair and necessary. Would you say it's fair? Yes. Is it necessary? Maybe. It's a shame for those guys. We said early on in the race they rolled the dice. Oh, big impact there. Who's that? Is that the Team Brit 570 McLaren? It was a GT3 McLaren. Couldn't quite make out which one it was, but that is going to be another safety car. Who's going to win here? Sam Neary, if he hasn't gone a lap down, which I think he must have, is the big loser I can think of straight away. I think this has got a chance of playing just into Cottinger and Howard's hands the most.
That was indeed a big hit for the Team Brit McLaren. I think it was Maggotts Beckett, but I couldn't quite tell for sure. One of the McLarens I suspected it might have been was the number 13, but it's not. Ewan Hankey is still there. And indeed, the safety car comes out just as Sam Neary has left the pit lane in the Team ABBA Racing Mercedes. This will turn the race on its head. And what did I say? When you get one safety car, in this race in particular, it seems you're always likely to get 2 or 3. And this is now a third safety car period of the race. It's the third time in the history of this 3-hour race that we've had 3 safety car periods, and this is going to be perhaps a slightly lengthier safety car period, because that's going to be a lot of recovery work to be done. First of all, we need to make sure the drivers are okay, then we need to get the cars out of the way, and then there was a lot of debris. You'd have to imagine some fluid maybe getting dropped on the track as well. This could take a little while, and again, really couldn't have come at a worse time.
We've been told both drivers are out and okay on their way to Mansell. So the Team Brit car has had a spin and then has rejoined, and that might look really stupid. Why has he done that? You are so blind in a race car. You've got to rejoin. He's obviously gone off, hit the wall. He's looking to his left. You can see the driver looking, but there's such a big blind spot in that pillar. He's pulled away thinking he's clear, and then Simon Orange comes into shot. Nowhere to go. That is a big impact. Luckily, it was just behind the driver's door, wasn't it? The yellow flags are up for the marshals. Could the cars have been going slower? The yellow flag, you should be able to come to a controlled stop, but I've never had a car pull out in front of me, so it's hard to say. I'm not putting any blame on anyone, but I can see why it's happened. I'm not saying someone could have done a better job, but it is difficult in that circumstance. Sandy Mitchell starting to back him up. Accelerate, brake, get those brakes up. 600-700 degrees, those discs will be glowing, getting those wheels and tyres then warm. What's he going to do? I think I would go pretty early. I would go actually on the way into Brooklands. Everyone expects you to go in the middle. That's the obvious point. I'd be going in the next 2 or 3 seconds, try to get him going. Sean Balfe looks nice and nervous, doesn't he? Teammate, he was running around 9th and 10th, did a good job. Sandy's already gone. Look at that, that is a mega restart. 2 car lengths to Johnny Adam.
Top 4 cars then, fighting for position, then a back marker, and then Raffaele Marcello. What has he got? What has Ross Gunn got in the Beech Dean Aston Martin? 27.5 minutes left to settle it, and Sandy Mitchell's had the restart of dreams. He's already 6 tenths to the good over Johnny Adams second, Rob Bell third, and Dan Harper in 4th position. One further back there is Ross Gunn coming through on the inside, bringing with him Will Tregertha. So both the Barwell cars have suddenly brought themselves right back into this out of really nowhere. Fingers crossed they all get through Maggotts Beckett's cleanly. There is some GT4 traffic to be dealt with further back. The paddock McLaren comes scything through the middle of it all and then runs straight on, almost off the road completely. And here then comes the number 50 car around the outside of it. That was a very close moment for James Wallace, but he does manage to get the track position back. Damages that on the side of Johnny Adams' car. Didn't notice that before. He is into 2nd place now with Dan Harper up to 3rd ahead of Rob Bell. So already some chopping and changing, and your prediction may well come right here. Dan Harper is on a mission. Stock-go penalty, by the way, for Paddock Motorsports GT4 car for a short final pit stop, as there the number 56 machine makes its way through with this suspended penalty. They may not end up winning on the road there, because this safety car has bunched everyone back together, and they've got the very rapid number 90 machine of Jack Brown, the Optimum Motorsport McLaren, within about 3 seconds. Although, is that a pass for position? It is, isn't it? No, Dan Vaughan is a lap behind them. So there's the 90 car running in 2nd position. The Dan Vaughan Porsche was battling this car for a podium place in the opening stint of the race, but the green and orange Porsche 1 lap down, given the way that the strategies have played out so far. So the first job, I guess, really here for the number 90 car is to find a way past. Jack Brown needs to get past the Porsche, get past some of the traffic, and start setting off after the Ginetta, which on that previous lap was actually half a second quicker than him, so the gap grows now to 3.6. As we focus in the main picture here on the GT4 battle, the inset shows us the GT3 squabble, which still has Johnny Adam ahead of Dan Harper. You need about 6 pairs of eyes, though, at this stage of the race to cover everything that's going on, and Jack Brown trying to work his way past the traffic is only a small part of it.
Yeah, we also had a message up on our timing screens about an incident under investigation, and it was that 2Cs one of Cottingham and the GT4 Aston, which eventually the Aston hit the wall. We've kind of forgotten about it almost with everything that's gone on, but that is under investigation, so that potentially is a very, very dark cloud over our current second place car. If it was to get a drive-through penalty quickly, that would release Harper, I think, for a little bit more pace to burn. As I say that, Mitchell's just done his fastest lap and the fastest lap of the race to get him right into that 58 bit, and Harper's gone, he's got through. See that flag from the marshal? I think it's just for debris. The yellow and red stripe flag can be a few things, can be debris, can be slippery surface, but I couldn't see anything too much. What's Harper got now? This is going to be his first clear lap. Shouldn't get any GT4s this lap either. Again, it looks like that Mercedes goes off almost, doesn't it? I think you were right. I thought it would be fine for a 30-minute stint. Started so strong, but Rob Bell's now all over the back of him. Something's not working particularly well on that Mercedes. Not that one, but all of them as a collective over a longer period of running.
Dan Harper, even with that overtake, was about 3/10 faster than Sandy Mitchell on the previous lap, so now he has been released. I tend to agree with Joe. I think he will have the pace to catch the Lamborghini. It's then about how well Sandy can defend the lead. Raffaele Marcello also joining in the fun now, and he can suddenly sniff an opportunity for a podium, because I think he's a little bit quicker than Rob Bell, and they're both a little bit quicker than Johnny Adam, who we ride on board with. Way wide over the curbs goes Rod Bell, using up all of his track limits warnings that he's got, and they drop down through the Vale into the club chicane, with 3rd, 4th and 5th positions getting as close as they can. This is the incident that Joe just referenced, the contact between the Mercedes and the Aston Martin. Boof, off goes the Aston into the barriers, and if that ends up with a penalty, it could change things greatly. We're hearing that the team manager of car number 4 has been summoned to race control, and that usually only ends one way. News from race control, 10-second stop-and-go penalty for both cars 4 and 19. Number 19 is the Claude Beauvais David McDonald Blackthorn Aston Martin. Car 4 is the car you're on board with right now. Johnny Adam in 3rd position. Not for the first time, his chances of a Silverstone 500 victory will disappear inside the final 20 minutes or so of the race. He's already slipped down into 3rd place. He's dropping away from the leaders. He's got that little bit of something hanging loose from the front of the car, and now he's got a stop-go penalty to serve as well. That will release Rob Bell and Raffaele Marcello behind him, but I think really the damage is done as far as them catching Harper goes, because Dan Harper has gone in the middle sector of this lap, though. Couple of tenths slower than Sandy Mitchell again, so Sandy responding a little bit now. Maybe he was just keeping something in reserve until he saw Dan Harper take that chunk of time out of him last time. On this occasion, if anything, the Lamborghini pulling away.
Yeah, he obviously had that new tyre hit really well, Mitchell. Now he's probably just learning the car a little. What's it like now the tyres are starting to drop off? But yeah, Harper's pace is really good in this first half of the lap, and then it ebbs slightly back to the Lamborghini again. So basically we've got a minute of positive BMW time coming up, and then a positive minute for Lambo. Mark Lemmer on the radio. Doesn't look like he's talking, looks like he's trying to pretend he's busy. He's actually put the mic out now, he's not fooling anyone. But what we're going to see, we're also getting the speed traps at the end of this straight. They're about to come onto a big slide there for Harper. He's throwing everything at it, and he is 4 miles an hour quicker than the Lamborghini. That is a huge amount. A mile an hour or two is enough to get an easy overtake. So to be more than double that is really interesting. Mitchell must have got held up a little as well with that GT4 Aston coming on to hang a straight. Johnny Adams still hasn't come in to take his drive-through penalty. I'm sure Optimum have told Rob Bell in the McLaren behind, you can chill a little. We've got a podium being given to us at the moment. All you need to do is keep Raffaele Marcello behind you for another 16.5 minutes.
The closer we get to that checkered flag lap, though, the more defensive Sandy Mitchell will become. The BMW gobbles him up under braking, but then the Lamborghini changes direction well through club and gets off the corner well enough to keep Dan Harper at arm's length. If they do start battling, Don't count out Rob Bell and Raffaele Bargello though, because on the previous lap, Bell was half a second quicker than Mitchell. If Mitchell starts to defend, that could bring them back into the fray as well. Meanwhile, an incident we're hearing between cars 4 and 97 will be investigated after the race. That is Johnny Adam and Ross Gunn, so the Beach Team Aston Martin and the 2Cs Mercedes. Right now, though, we focus on the fight for the victory. There are 12 and a quarter minutes to go in this 2023 Silverstone 500. Is it going to be Barwell Motorsports Day? Will Century Motorsport get the victory? Surely the favourite is the BMW, with a much superior exit there from Aintree. Down the Wellington Straight, jinxed from the outside to the inside. Fantastic stuff there from Dan Harper. Sandy Mitchell is desperately late on the brakes through Brooklands. Can he hang on? Surely not. He's got the inside line for Luffield, drifts out wide. Harper goes up the inside and finally manages to outfox the double Silverstone winner, almost leaning on each other off the corner. They're door handle to door handle past the pits with a handful of laps to go. Can Dan Harper wrestle the BMW through into the lead of the race? The answer is yes. Through he goes at Copse Corner. Dan Harper makes it stick with some terrific side-by-side racing.
That was the best dummy I've seen sold in a long time. Mitchell went on the defence, so it looked like the job was done. He then started drifting over rather greedily to the racing line, and Harper went, you know what, I'm coming back at you. And you saw the body language of that car. Darren Lung pretty happy with that one. Nathan Freak, team manager, giving him a big hug. Thank you for your money, and we might win this race. But that was brilliant by Harper, sold in the dummy, and then Mitchell had one chance. He was so late on the brakes to Brooklands to keep the win alive, which he did well, but he needed to brake earlier, stop it at Luffield, not run wide, park it on the apex, and not allow that BMW, one, to go through, and two, to keep the momentum on it all the way onto the start of the next lap. He's still close, but that BMW, I think, is really got it hooked up today.
And it's always so hard to pass a car that's quicker than you down the straights. That's the 64 Porsche off at the Beckett's complex, but thankfully no damage done. And as long as it got there on its own and there isn't another car stationary somewhere, we should be okay to keep green. Bounces itself back out onto the road, and we carry on as if nothing ever happened. But yeah, Dan Harper, now he's got that track position advantage, is going to be almost impossible to pass, surely. The question now, I guess, is whether or not Rob Bell can do anything about Sandy Mitchell. The starting point for him was 2.8 seconds at the start of the lap, but he has been going quicker than the Lamborghini driver so far on this, the 73rd lap of the race. Down the back straight they go, and now they catch the traffic. So that was perfect timing, really, for Harper, getting that move done before they hit the GT4 traffic, because that can take time away from you so easily and could well have ultimately robbed him of the chance to make the move. What a fantastic result this would be, though, for Century Motorsport. That BMW is going to be a real force to be reckoned with this year, I think. And they are going to come through after a disappointing starting position for them to surely now claim the race victory. Down towards the braking zone at Brooklands they come. Dan Harper has driven brilliantly. Darren Young as well, in fairness, put in two really good stints. The second of those affected by the safety car, but the first one was genuinely really quick. Out of Luffield Corner then will come Dan Harper. Century Motorsport can finally breathe, although he has a wobble over the curb at the final turn just to give us one more scare. To the line he will come, though. Darren Young and Dan Harper win the 2023 Intelligent Money British GT Championship round at Silverstone. The Silverstone 500 and the RAC trophy going their way. Second place goes to Sandy Mitchell in the number 78 Lamborghini. That was a fantastic drive for he and Sean Balfe, whilst Rob Bell in the 27 car will come home in third position. Further back there, that was Will Tregurtha and Ben Barnacote separating themselves by 21 thousandths of a second in the fight for sixth position on the run to the flag, in what was a real nail-biting battle between those two as well. In GT4, it will be on the road the Ginetta that leads the way, but they are being black flagged for not serving this penalty, and so actually that number 56 car is not going to claim the victory. That will go the way of car number 90, which has really been one of the pace setters all race long. The Ginetta got to the front on strategy, but Jack Brown and Charles Clark, no matter who's been in the car, they have been setting the pace within GT4. They built up an enormous cushion over the rest of the field, and as they come out of Luffield Corner now to see the checkered flag, it will be the race victory for Optimum Motorsport in GT4, a class that really none of us knew which way it was going to go, but it has been relative domination from them, and Optimum Motorsport celebrate the win as the car comes across the line. Second place in that class should go the way of the number 12. That's Ed McDermott and Michael Broadhurst, another car that we never really expected to see on the podium, whilst Academy, despite their issues for both cars, will get the 61 car onto the podium. That's the Eric Evans and Matt Cowley car, which should therefore take over the championship lead.
Well, Darren, while we wait for Dan to take his helmet off and come over here, that was a battle, wasn't it? I mean, Sandy was a hard one to overtake there, but Dan just seemed to have the pace.
Yeah, well, as I said several times already today, in my opinion, best driver in the world. Absolutely phenomenal guy. Really done the job for us today, especially with everything we've had to come up against, starting from P18. He's just never had any sort of faltering, attitude-wise or anything. He's just been there to pick us all up, including me. So yeah, for me, this is credit to him. This is all him.
Yeah, he's going to come over in just a second. He's just taking his time to catch his breath, which I think is understandable. And you mentioned how far back you had to start.
Yeah.
Let's just get Dan over here. Dan, just been talking about how far back you had to start on the grid there, and the fight you had with Sandy. You gave us a bit of a wobble, a bit of a scare for Darren, I think, as well. Maybe a couple of laps from the end, because Sandy started to gap you back again. Was it just a problem, or were you just taking it easy?
No, I was not taking it easy, I'll tell you that. That was unreal. I mean, I can't believe it, to be honest, with how everything's gone all weekend, really.
I can believe it.
And yeah, I'm just so happy for Darren, for the team. It's just been so much hard work, and all over winter we've tried so hard, and we've got this thing in a really good window, and it's such a pleasure to drive.
Well, this man's saying you're the best driver on the grid. What do you reckon about that?
I don't know, still a bit of work maybe, but today was a good day, let's say that.
A very good day. Well done both.
Cheers, thank you.
Okay then, so the Silverstone 500 is won by BMW in 2023. Darren Leung and Dan Harper victorious for Century Motorsports. Andy Mitchell and Sean Balfe come home in second for Barwell, with Optimum's McLaren of Rob Bell and Mark Radcliffe in third. A good day in the end for Optimum across both of the classes. Beach Dean's Aston Martin, Ross Gunn and Andrew Howard were fourth ahead of John Ferguson and Raffaele Marcello. You sense we didn't see the best of them really after that damage that was sustained on the way to the grid. Then Mark Sansom and Will Tregurtha, under the radar result for them, but both Barwell Lambos inside the top six. Brendan Reeve and Ben Barnacote, though, the one that got away for Inception Racing, they settled for seventh. Then it's Loggy and Goonon, Price and McLeod, with Chris Hart and James Wallace completing the top 10. In GT4, it is Charles Clark and Jack Brown who claim the race win, with Michael Broadhurst and Ed McDermott second, Matt Cowley and Eric Evans in third, ahead of Holloway and Ellis, with Rollage and Millar for DTO Motorsport completing the top five. Of course, you will not see at the front of that field the top was the 56 Ginetta, which was black flagged for not serving the penalty. So, Optimum Motorsport get a car on the podium in GT3, but a car on the top step of the podium in GT4. Charles Clark and Jack Brown, your winners in GT4, catching up now with Bryn.
Well, let's start with you, Charles, a BRDC Rising Star. You've just got yourself a pretty decent win here. I'll come to Jack in just a second, because watching that one, no nails bitten at all, I imagine.
Yeah, it was... It's my first British GT win, so I'm absolutely buzzing, especially here at Silverstone for the Silverstone 500. Couldn't have done it in a better place, really. We've worked hard in the test to make sure we're on the pace in the dry. Coming into the weekend, it was wet, so we didn't really know what our pace was going to be like in the dry, and we both did a great job and brought home the win for Optimum.
Yeah, 2021 you won at Spa, 2022 you won at Snet, 2023 you won at Silverstone. You've completed the golden trio, should we say, the Trinity.
Yeah, well, hopefully there's more to come from that. Yeah, it was an interesting race. The first stint was quite tricky, it's very hot, I was struggling quite a bit, but the pace was good. Charles went in, did a great job, I took over, and it was managing at that point. So I let a couple of cars go who weren't for position, and it worked out really well. It was just a cruise to the finish line of my stint, so it worked out really well in our favour. So thank you very much, everyone. It's good.
And you had the 56 Ginetta, didn't you, that you knew there was going to take a penalty. They weren't taking the penalty, so you knew eventually it was going to come to you?
Yeah, no, I kind of figured that they would get the penalty in the end. So, those two cars in front, I was not interested in risking the car and risking what we already had. So,
well done both. Go and get your trophies, enjoy some champagne. Well done.
Guys.
Cheers, guys.
Fantastic racing action here from Silverstone. Join us again next time at Donington Park in the Intelligent Money British GT Championship.